Welcome back to another episode of ROC Boys football. Draft season is here. ROC joining the fellas, and we're taking a look at a first-round 2023 NFL mock draft from PFF's Mike Renner. Finally got our top 18 draft order, ready to rock and roll, and it got a lot more interesting. It seemed like the Houston Texans were locked to get that first overall pick. It was going to be Bryce Young. They win, and now they fired Nolan Smith for it. And now the Chicago Bears are taking that number 1 overall pick. Excited to get into it. Before we do, though, I just want to say thank you guys for the support you guys have shown. If you do enjoy the content, you like talking the NFL draft, you like talking college football prospects, consider subscribing to the channel. We're getting our position rankings out. Hopefully in the next 2 weeks, we're still working through all the position groups. But again, the support you guys have shown truly means a lot. So if you do enjoy the content, subscribe, get in the comment section. Let's chop it up about some players. Without further ado, let's get into this mock deal. I'm going to kick it off to you. So Chicago's sitting at that first overall pick. Mike Renner has them trading it to the Indianapolis Colts. You're the GM of Chicago, who is actually from Rochester, New York. Where are you going with this pick here?
I think they're going to trade out of this pick 100%. And the reason I think it is, I think Justin Fields has shown enough that you can stick with him for another year or two. And again, I don't know that he's proven to be the franchise guy, but again, I think on his development path and what he showed with his legs, especially and just how much better that offense looked in general, I think you're close enough. And probably the biggest thing is, say you go back to 4, which seems like the logical spot, you're going to have 2 quarterbacks picked in the top 2 or probably top 3. And then you're going to either get Jalen Carter or Will Anderson. So you're going to get a guy who's a number 1 caliber pick at the 4 spot. So I think if they can make a trade with the Colts, that would be a really good situation.
Rock, you agree with that?
Yeah. Lovie Smith really put the Houston Texans in a really poor position right here. So yeah, I'd agree with it. If I'm the Bears, I'm trading back. If I'm the Colts, I'm trading up to get a franchise quarterback.
And the best part of it is, I'm hearing they told Lovie Smith he was going to be relieved in the morning of, and so he's like, I'm going to win this. I'm going to win this game and really stick it to him. I'm with you guys. And Dill, I think you make a good point where it's you trade to number 4 to the Colts. You're probably still getting Will Anderson or Jalen Carter, who in other last year, either one of those guys would have been the first.
You're assuming that the Texans don't take a quarterback. They're 100% taking Stroud or Young. And again, we can get into this pick. It's not going to be Will Levis because he's not even in the realm of those other 2. But I think you're going to get 2 quarterbacks in the top 4. And if you do that and you trade back to the inside the top 4 for the Bears, you're going to get a number 1 caliber player.
Yeah, and the Will Levis, I think what C.J. Stroud did against Georgia in the college football playoff game, and the biggest question mark he had with C.J. Stroud is what can he do under pressure. He sits behind a 2 potential first-round NFL tackles, a very good interior offensive line, throwing to multiple first-round NFL draft picks. What's he do when there's pressure in his face and when he has to kind of go through his reads? He looked awesome against Georgia, and I think he kind of solidified himself as that number 2 prospect. I think I don't have as much questions about that. I don't think any of us are really Will Levis believers. I think there's some potential there. I'm probably highest on Will Levis out of all 3 of us. I think the more interesting question is, now the Arizona Cardinals are sitting at 3. Are you going Will Anderson or Jalen Carter here? Rock, I'll kick it off to you for that one.
Yeah, really quick about the Texans, though. I think they are still a candidate to trade up to the number 1 pick just to make sure they secure the guy they want.
I do too.
That would be an unfortunate scenario. Really tough for the Texans. I mean, they should have no luck. But yeah, Will Anderson, I like this pick. Gives the Cardinals someone on the edge for the foreseeable future. I also put Will Anderson above Jalen Carter recently. So he's my number 1 overall prospect. I just think he's a difference maker on the defensive side.
And I think when you saw Jalen Carter go up against a really good Ohio State offensive line, it wasn't great. I think it was pretty good against TCU last night, but there are –
I think Will Anderson last year. I don't know what it was. It just didn't seem the same.
Agree. I agree with that, and I think partially due to he was a little banged up this year. But Will Anderson is both of them probably weren't as dominant as they were last year. But I think Will Anderson is just a little bit more of a game wrecker than Jalen Carter is. But I wouldn't be the one to die on the hill that Jalen Carter shouldn't be over Will Anderson here. Seattle Seahawks at 5. This is basically, I think you could go best player available here. I don't know if they'll be in the market for a quarterback, and if they're going best player available, which it seems like they are, pick is Myles Murphy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I like that.
I agree with that to an extent, but I do think if you leave CJ Stroud on the board for the Seahawks, again, I do like obviously Geno played really well, but he is 32, and I mean, you don't know how long you're going to get him playing at that high of a level. If you have Stroud on the board, I think he's hard to pass up as much as like it would kind of stink to not be able to ride with Geno for a little longer. But when you're staring down a guy who, in my opinion, and he's, I would argue he's underrated because I think there's a very good argument for him over Bryce Young. Not a great argument, but I think you could make one. It might be hard to pass him up at 5. I don't
Or
know.
yeah, and again, this is something we didn't see last year in the draft, is like there are legitimate quarterbacks who teams really are willing to trade up for, and that could be another trade spot. Say Seattle does want to ride with Geno Smith and they acquired a ton of picks from the Broncos. This could be another point where Seattle looks to kind of stockpile some more picks and trade out if the Vegas Raiders want to come up to 5 and go get CJ Stroud. But I'm kind of with you. The Detroit Lions is a really interesting one because they'll get kind of like, assuming 3 quarterbacks go in the top 5, which is looking like it'll happen. Like they need to go defense. I think everyone agrees they need to go defense. Bryan Bresee on the board. My lean is the cornerback class. I think is really, really good. ROC, I know you are probably highest on the cornerback class out of all 3 of us. Bryan Bresee still on the board. Like if you're the Lions, where are you going here?
I don't count out quarterback here, especially with CJ Stroud still on the board.
Yeah.
You gotta look to the future if you're Lions. I think they're probably in the best position of really any NFL team right now in terms of like the draft capital, the cap space, and where the team's at currently. So yeah, I think Christian Gonzalez would be a great pick, a cornerback that can protect the boundaries for them. But I mean, Bresee is great. I don't love him as a prospect. I don't think he's a top 10 pick. But anything on the defensive side, I think is a good pick for the Lions.
Yeah, Bryan Bresee is an interesting one. While we're at Bryan Bresee, he's a guy that when he was a true freshman, he looked like he was going to be a lock to be a top 5 pick, and then towards ACL in year 2, and then this year, like kidney disease or something with his kidney. Then he obviously his little sister passes away from cancer. You never really seemed to see him at 100%, and there was a reason why he's kicking around coming back for a 4th year. I think the ceiling on Bryan Bresee is so high that I probably would go with Bryan Bresee if I'm not going quarterback. That being said, the cornerbacks in this class are dummy good, and I think the Lions have a later round 1st-round pick where you could maybe get another good cornerback. So it makes a little sense. Vegas Raiders going CJ Stroud. We talked about Stroud. I think all 3 of us like him a lot. Another guy that's kind of a polarizing prospect, especially with us, we'll have a little conversation. Tyree Wilson. Boys, thoughts?
I mean, I'm coming around on him, I'd say, in terms of, I mean, he's for sure, I think, in the top 15 range, but I don't know. I am a massive Isaiah McGuire fan. I don't know why people don't like him more. I think if you're looking edge in this draft, I think he could be up there. Obviously, now that Jared Verse is gone, like it's him and Felix. It's him, Felix, and Tyree Wilson. I don't think there's a huge gap between the 3 of them.
I personally think Wilson's a better prospect than a Bresee. So I would have probably picked him with a Lions pick. But I do love Wilson. I think at the end of the day, he'll probably be closer to a top 5 pick than a top 10 pick, just knowing how the NFL rolls with just projecting players. Like we saw again, I've said it again with Trayvon Walker. You just see these guys that don't have the type of production as some other prospects, but have the physical traits, the athleticism, and it really boosts their draft stock.
I just I'm seeing a lot of Trayvon Walker comps to Tyree Wilson. I don't think he's like as explosive as Walker was. And you're asking me who I think has like a higher ceiling in terms of physical traits. I'm probably leaning Bresee over Wilson. I do have Wilson as my 3rd edge as I'm looking at my position rankings, and I like his game a lot. And I think this makes a lot of sense, but he does need some work. The Falcons, I mean, if you're a defensive line coach and you look at Tyree Wilson, you're saying, let me get my hands on him because he's a guy that could really be special. Pick 9, and this is another one, Anthony Richardson. I think the Carolina Panthers, it makes a lot of sense for them to get a quarterback. It just wouldn't be Anthony Richardson for me. And again, they're always seem like they're just left holding the bag here with like a kind of a not the best quarterback prospect. I think we all agree. Thoughts on Anthony Richardson as a top 10 prospect?
Yeah, I don't see top 10. I mean, again, he's a guy you wish he came back another year. It's like the play just wasn't quite consistent enough this year or last. And I don't know. I feel like you're taking too big of a risk taking him in the higher part of the first round.
Yeah, I agree with Dill there. I also think that if I'm a Carolina Panthers exec, we need to trade up for a quarterback. There's been just way too many years we've just kind of sit idly by and let these quarterbacks just jump up and fall off the board from us. And this is the year with enough quarterbacks, enough prospects where we got to make a move.
I agree. You don't want to leave this draft if you're Carolina not getting Levis, Stroud, or Bryce Young. That's kind of my take on it. Bryan Branch, I'll talk a little bit about Bryan Branch. The Eagles is a really weird team to mock with because they're quite easily the most complete team in the NFL, and they have 2 first-round picks. Bryan Branch is a guy that if you know what you want to do, he's sitting. I have him as a safety. He can come in and play nickel, played a lot of nickel for Alabama. If you know what you want to do with Bryan Branch, I think he can be a true stud in the NFL. That being said, what team picks him needs to know how they're going to use him because, again, I think he can be great as like a nickel corner, kind of a box safety, covering tight ends, covering receivers out of the slot, but also playing like that center field safety spot. He can do a lot of things. I just think it's really important for whatever NFL team gets him, they know what they want to do with him.
Yeah, I think it's a great fit too because I just watched Bryan Branch today. And with the Eagles, you have a CJ Gardner-Johnson. You have the 2 outside corners with Bradbury and Slay, but you do need someone in the inside, kind of a nickel slot guy that can also roam the top of the field. And I think Bryan really plays his best football with the field in front of him. And so if they can just put him in a position to succeed, it's going to be a great pick for the Eagles.
I agree. And he's not a top 10 guy on my big board, but it does seem like a good fit there. Tennessee Titans getting Paris Johnson. They want to run the ball. In my mind, he's the best run blocking tackle in the class. This dude, he needs some work in pass pro. I think like the anchor has been a problem, and that's what we talked about with him. But in terms of like being explosive off the ball and moving guys around, I think Paris Johnson's the best in that class, him or Broderick Jones. And I think this would be a dynamite pick. He's my number 1 tackle, and I think he finds a perfect landing spot at Tennessee.
The ceiling for him is
dummy
really, really high. And for a team that wants to run the ball and like give him a chance to develop more as a pass protector while still being able to start and be a really effective player. Because you're right, he is. I'm with you. I think best run blocker in this draft for me. I think this would be a good fit because obviously it seems like Taylor Lewan's not going to be there next year. So him and Petit Frere pair him back up from the old Buckeye days. Like,
yeah,
forgot about that.
Yeah, I didn't think about that either, but I like that too. And this would be such a shame that Bryce Young isn't going to Houston in this mock. But man, would I love if Houston could leave the 2023 NFL draft with Bryce Young and Quentin Johnston on Thursday night.
What did you think about his game last night?
Tough, but they couldn't do anything. Like he's going up against Ringo a lot, and I think Ringo is like one of the perfect cornerbacks to cover a guy like Quentin Johnston. But I mean, TCU just could not get anything going. And I thought he didn't really get any targets. Like they didn't really go after him that much. And I'm not reading too much into it. I think he's my wide receiver 1 in the class by a pretty substantial margin. I think he has the highest ceiling for sure, and he probably is the best wide receiver, period. I like this pick a lot. Yeah, it wasn't great, but he's been good in every other game he's suited up for TCU.
Yeah.
All right, Jets. Peter Skoronski. Boys, I'm going to let you kind of take this away. Paris Johnson is like probably my clear offensive tackle 1. Broderick Jones, Peter Skoronski, I'm kind of torn between. Thoughts on this one?
I think I'm taking Skoronski. I personally probably take Skoronski as my number 1 tackle just because, like, I think the consistency on the tape was pretty. I mean, he was the guy. I think he was the best in what he played. Yeah, I don't think he's quite got the ceiling of Paris Johnson or probably Broderick, but I think you can take any of the 3 for me, Broderick, Paris, and him. I think you can make a case for all 3, and I don't think any of them are top 5 type caliber. So there is no like easy answer, I don't think, at the tackle spot.
In terms of like scheme fit and then like draft history, I think that the Jets kind of enjoy the bigger offensive tackles, which is why I'd rather go like an Anton Harrison here. I mean, they got Mekhi Becton, they bring in Dwayne Johnson, they have all these huge kind of players. I think Anton Harrison kind of fits that mold a little bit better. But with Skoronski, I mean, you're getting a sure thing in my mind. I think he's got great technique. And if they're looking for something to build for the next quarterback, whoever they have in there next time or next year, it's a great starting point.
You're probably right. They want to run it, so maybe it would make sense to go with Harrison, or if Paris Johnson's still on the board. That
Brody Jones.
They don't need to pass protect. They got to worry about trying to run it a little bit.
And the thing with Peter Skoronski is he's got the highest floor out of these tackles. Like even if he doesn't work out a tackle, he's gonna be a damn good guard. New England Patriots at 14, Devon Witherspoon. Let's get cooking. Our cornerback 1. Is this the first cornerback off in the draft? And he's our cornerback 1. What he's done in man coverage at Illinois. And I love a cornerback when he's not just like scheme specific. Like Keely Ringo really, I think, can only play like in a kind of a zone coverage scheme in the NFL. Devon Witherspoon was an absolute seatbelt all year for Illinois. They pretty much played man and just blitzed pretty much all year under Ryan Walters, and Devon Witherspoon was nails.
Yeah, I mean, their entire defensive back core was insane. Witherspoon's just a dog. He's my cornerback 1 as well. I have him just one spot over Christian Gonzalez. It's a very New England's Patriots kind of pick. Yeah. Something you don't want to see enter the division, but just a lockdown corner that has some size concerns, but I'm not really worried about it just based off his play style.
He's so good. My only argument, and this would make a little sense of why a cornerback slips to 14, is there's so many. I'm going to have, I think, 5 cornerbacks in my top 32. I think that class is that good. So if you wanted to wait, it might make sense because you could get some damn good cornerbacks in the second round. But Devon Witherspoon is such a lock. I really do like his game. Green Bay Packers going to get Michael Mayer. I'm starting to get really sick of this pick. I've seen it a lot in a lot of mocks, and Michael Mayer is a very good tight end. I don't think he's he doesn't have the movement skills. He doesn't have the athleticism, I think, to justify a top 15 pick on a tight end. I think he's really good. He's very good at blocking in the run game. He's obviously very good at work in the middle of the field. He's good at the position. I just don't see the athletic upside that you saw in a Kyle Pitts to justify using a draft capital top 15 pick on a kid like him.
Yeah, you need to be like Brock Bowers good, Travis Kelce good, Kyle Pitts good, and I'm kind of with you. I think he's more of a really good traditional tight end. I don't know that he's going to do he can't do what Brock Bowers does, and that's I think what you need to justify a first half of the first round type pick, and I don't see that from him.
Yeah, I don't know. Rock, I'm going to let you take over the Commanders here with Christian Gonzalez.
I love the pick for the Commanders. As a Cowboys fan, it hurts. He's an ex-track guy, so he's got speed. Just lockdown. He's been great at Colorado, been great at Oregon. You just rarely see quarterbacks throw his way. His tape kind of reminds me of Sauce Gardner in the sense that it's just kind of boring. You don't really see anything going on until you do, and it's an interception or a PB. So, I love the pick, and it's a great fit in Washington.
Yeah, 6'2", clocked at 23.3 miles per hour on the GPS, 42-inch vertical. He has all, and especially at a position where you're really valuing the athleticism at cornerback. And one of the biggest question marks about Sauce was, is he the athlete to kind of warrant a top 5 pick? And he ran a good 40, and then obviously he's been very good in the NFL. Christian Gonzalez, he's cornerback 4 for me. But I love all these cornerbacks, and I think it'd be a great pick. And you see another one come off the board with Cam Smith, which Rock, he was your cornerback 1 for a while. Where is he on your board now?
I put him at 5. I got to really sit down and watch more of his tape from 2022 because I was really just going off of 2021 tape. And I thought his coverage ability in 2021 was really good, but in 22, he kind of got a little bit overzealous, over-aggressive. He just missed on some of his punches and just get fooled at the line of scrimmage. But he's still a great pick. I still think he's a first-round pick. Gritty competitor. Pittsburgh Steelers pick makes sense. Just not a top guy anymore for me.
So, Rock, I know you like Cam Smith because your number 1 trait for cornerback is the dog in him. I want to see a competitor. Cam Smith's actually the cornerback 5 for me as well, but I kind of agree with you. A little too handsy at times. Got beat a couple more times than you would have liked. He's still very good. I think he'll still be a first-round pick, but there are some other cornerbacks like a Joey Porter Jr., like a Keely Ringo, who I'm a little bit higher on. Dill, here's your pick. I know we've been trying to rotate here. Me and Rock, not necessarily running back fans, especially in the top 20. You, not so much. Bijan Robinson.
Contingent. You'd have to trade the 2 they have because they have got. Jamal Williams obviously just had a phenomenal year and he's not getting paid a ton of money. I think you got DeAndre Swift. Obviously, he's coming to the end of his rookie deal, but playing really good football. So you got to trade Swift then, right? If you're gonna make this pick, you can't carry them both because.
Well, I think they're both up for free agency, and so.
If they're both hitting free agency, then.
And the thing with that is, I would rather sign. I mean, I don't know if you're getting Swift back, but okay, I love Bijan Robinson. The Detroit Lions have a hell of a lot more needs on the defense side of the ball than a running back.
But they got to run the football though. Like that's gonna be the way they win, especially if they don't take a quarterback over with Goff.
You get a Zach Charbonnet in late day 2, and you'll be able to run the football fine behind that offensive line. But I mean, they can't stop a nosebleed on the defensive side of the ball. You're staring at Keely Ringo, Joey Porter Jr. dead in the face. Like I feel like you can't pass on a top 20 talent at the cornerback.
That's fair. If you could get Branch in a corner, that actually could be like a really nice, like Branch maybe here, corner at the top. I don't know. That would make sense to me because I don't really know that there's a safety other than Branch who I would take that high. But
quick side note, how crazy is it with the Lions? You're looking at their rushing leaders throughout history, and you see Jamal Williams as rushing touchdown leader for 2022, like more than Barry Sanders ever had. Just I don't know. It's a weird feeling, or it's just strange to me.
I'm a massive fan of Jamal Williams, just who he is. I think he's a very fun guy to watch. Nolan Smith, I'll go on Nolan Smith. He's kind of a polarizing prospect for me because he's a little undersized, but I mean, 25% pass rush win rate when he was healthy. Obviously, I think tore his pectoral muscle. I think it's a pec injury. He's a former number 1 overall recruit out of high school. Very twitched up, uses his hands well, has been coached very well by Georgia. That being said, he does kind of lack that size that you want. You're not really sure what you want to do with him sitting at 235 pounds, but he's a very good player who's very good in the run game. You guys have him as like a top 20 guy on your board?
Top 20 is stretching it for me.
Same.
I also don't know. I mean, for a Tampa Bay Buccaneers team who had so many injuries along the offensive line, and they also just drafted Troyan Shoyinka from Washington the other year, who's a speed rusher, and they have Shaq Barrett on the other side. I think there's some better picks to be made for this team, but I mean, Nolan Smith as a prospect's a fantastic pick.
And I think Nolan Smith's going to be a guy that a lot of GMs fall in love with. Like, comes back for another year to Georgia, kind of improve his stock, but I think also kind of create that dynasty that we're seeing Georgia have. And obviously goes down with a season-ending injury, but like was that the heartbeat of that defense, even from the sideline. And so he's going to be a guy that GMs fall in love with. But kind of with you, I don't have him as a top 20 prospect, and you're looking at what the Bucs need. I feel like they could go in a couple different spots. Keely Ringo's another interesting one. I would love him to go to Seattle. I think that's a good landing spot. And again, he's another one you could see a lot of GMs falling in love with. Was my cornerback 1 heading into the year. Again, we've talked about this, struggles in man coverage, just kind of a thicker, bulkier guy. So some of those route running specialists could kind of I think shake him out of his cleats a little bit. But again, when you're looking at covering a guy like DK Metcalf in practice in Seattle, there's not a better cornerback in the class to deal with some of those bigger, more physical receivers than Keely Ringo.
Him and Woolen would make a lot of sense as a tandem because those are two guys who are big, fast, rangy players who I think, Woolen was taking the ball away pretty well as a rookie. I think Keely Ringo could develop into a really good ball hawking corner. Obviously at Georgia, I think he had 4 picks in his career, which is solid, but not a crazy amount. But yeah, I think they would match up well because I think they're both pretty more zone corners, lock down the hash marks.
They're going to have 2, if this happens, obviously, they're going to have 2 corners over 6'2" or 6'1" who both run the 4.3s. I mean, that's just incredible.
And big dudes. These guys are big physical dudes. The Jaguars go with Cyrus Torrence. I could get with this pick. You obviously continue to build around Trevor Lawrence. And if you want an interior offensive lineman, there is not a better interior offensive lineman than Cyrus Torrence on this board. I
kind of agree with that. But I also don't really see him as a clear first-round player.
Me neither.
I don't think he's quite the athlete that you'd want at that high of a pick of a guard. I mean, he's strong, big, physical, obviously, but I don't know. He's got the feet to play at the level of a Zach Martin or Quentin Nelson and you're taking a guard that high, you got to play kind of that well.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that. Dolphins forfeit their pick and will lose to the Bills on Sunday. The New York Giants going with Jordan Addison, wide receiver 2 off the board. I'm kind of interested to hear you, and we'll get more into this in the position breakdowns. Jordan Addison, your wide receiver 2?
I think it's really tight with him and Smith and Jigba. I think they're really, really close.
Go Rock, sorry.
No, I think Addison is one of the few complete wide receivers in this draft. I think there's a lot of slot guys with because Zay Flowers, a Josh Downs, Marvin Mims, maybe you can stretch a field, but Addison's a complete wide receiver, and that's something that they really need in New York. And pairing him with Wan'Dale Robinson, Saquon Barkley, and Daniel Jones, whatever. But so I think it's a good pick for them.
I agree. Like if you want like an outside wide receiver who could be a wide receiver 1, I think Jordan Addison is the guy. I have him as my wide receiver 2. I do not. I have Smith and Jigba as my wide receiver 2. But if you're looking for a guy that could be that wide receiver 1 alpha on the outside, I do think it's Jordan Addison because, like you said, JSN, Zay Flowers, Josh Downs, they're kind of more slot guys. And then Kayshon Boutte, I have Jordan Addison pretty comfortably over Boutte there. This would be a phenomenal pick. Darnell Washington, who's my tight end 1, going to the Baltimore Ravens. Obviously a team that loves their tight ends and loves to run the football. I couldn't find a better fit for him than the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, it just makes sense. And I mean, I don't know what they do with quarterback for this year. I don't know if they re-sign Lamar or not, but whatever they have for the next quarterback, it's going to look good with Darnell Washington and Mark Andrews, some safety blankets in the middle of the field.
Oh, I mean, like they're going to try to run the ball and you're going with like Pat Ricard, Darnell Washington as like your lead blockers. Like that's disgusting. Like sign me up for that all day of the week. And here you go, Rock. Your guy, and Rock's been banging the table for Zay Flowers to be a first-round guy. Mike Renner, I know, has him as a wide receiver too. Rock, give us a little Zay Flowers.
No, I applaud Mike Renner for this draft. I think every pick really makes a lot of sense, especially with this Chargers pick, because you see their wide receiving core, not a lot of speed. They have Keenan Allen, kind of old, kind of slow. Mike Williams, not very fast at all. Josh Palmer, no one that can really stretch the field for a gunslinger that can really throw the ball down the field with Justin Herbert. So Zay Flowers is my wide receiver 2. I'm going to stick until the end with that. I might even move into wide receiver 1. Who knows? So
that's like so nuts to say he's better than Jackson Smith and Jigba. Like I get Smith and Jigba didn't play all year, but if you watched him last year, they're not even in the same world.
I'm over the diva Ohio State Michael Thomas.
What are you talking about? Although, like most of the Ohio State wideouts are good. You're like Michael Thomas since
he reminds me too much of Michael Thomas. That's why I'm not going to put him over Zay Flowers. Zay Flowers is one of a kind.
I'm not going to lie. Rock's got me on the Zay Flowers train. I have him as my wide receiver 4. Zay Flowers is good, and I think Rock makes a good point. Justin Herbert has one of the best deep balls in the league, and Zay Flowers is a guy who kind of specializes on not only stretching the field with his speed, but like his ball tracking. Like he looks so smooth, like tracking balls when it's like over the middle or kind of towards the boundary. I could get with this pick in a big time way. And now your Dallas Cowboys go get Drew Sanders. And I know you don't like this pick. I don't really like this pick. And I get I get why people are very high on Drew Sanders because he's a very good athlete. He's a former 5-star guy at Bama, transfers to Arkansas. But I mean, spent most of his time at edge at Alabama, then plays kind of that off-ball backer spot at Arkansas. 20% missed tackle rate. Like I don't think he's the athlete to kick down the edge like Micah Parsons and expect another Micah Parsons. He's not close to that athlete, and I just don't think he's a good enough off-ball linebacker. Like I'm not taking him over Trent Simpson.
See, no. I don't think the off-ball linebackers are like particularly good in this class.
No.
I think he has a perfectly fine argument to be number 1. I mean, it's him, Simpson, Campbell, and probably Cedric Gray, and I don't think any of those guys have outplayed each other to the extent where I'd be disgusted, be like, oh, how are you going to take that guy over him? Like they've all played good football. They all have their questions. I think he's. I mean, if you really want to go off ball linebacker, I think he is not a horrible.
Are you taking him at 26 though? I guess it's like I don't necessarily hate him as LB1, but it's like, are you taking him at 26 overall?
I personally don't, but I also think if you're Dallas and you're picking late, which they will be, and you're committed to getting an off ball linebacker, I don't think it's crazy if he's the best of the 4. I don't know. I mean,
all right, Rock, Dallas Cowboy fan, let's let you talk about it.
The issue with our defense this year has been run defense. Obviously, our corner's been down, so it's been kind of tough all around. But with Drew Sanders, I think his number one issue is him taking on blocks when linemen are when linemen are getting up to the second level, right? So I would look pretty much anywhere else than Drew Sanders at this 26 overall pick. I'm looking at our run ability. I think that Anton Harrison, a Broderick Jones would be great picks here. Pair him next to Tyler Smith, who goes to left guard next year. There's just a lot of spots that I'd rather shore up than an off-ball linebacker that they're comparing to Michael Parsons, which is insane. It just doesn't make sense with the strengths of our defense, the weaknesses of our defense. Drew Sanders really doesn't fit the mold.
Yeah, I agree. I just don't know what you're gonna do with him. I think he's he's a day 2 guy where it's like you want to take a flyer on a guy who's a good athlete, sure, but it's like you can get bona fide starters in the first round. Drew Sanders is far and away not a bona fide starter. ROC, another one of your favorites, Anton Harrison going to the Bengals. This one makes a lot of sense, and I don't think we've seen Broderick Jones off the board yet, so I'm kind of interested to see that. But Anton Harrison, you guys have been kicking around as tackle 1. What are your thoughts here?
I'm just trying to read what he's saying about where they're putting Jonah Williams inside.
I don't think that's a bad idea because Jonah Williams has not played a great left tackle spot for that team. I think in general they need a lot of help in depth because when one guy goes down, they really fall apart.
Yeah, and I think their defense is pretty good. They have the wideouts, they have tight ends. The last thing is just to shore up the offensive line for Joe Burrow to really just be a savage. So,
and again, you're gonna have versatile guys. Like I think Anton Harrison, like he's gonna be a tackle in the league, but if it doesn't, he can play guard. He's got the size, he's got the strength. So I think he'll help because you need depth and bodies who can do a couple different things. I think.
Yeah.
I was going on to the next pick. Vikings fans, we did not make this mock draft. Just preface that.
I actually watched Tanner McKee the other week. So he's a guy that outside of the guys who went in the top 10, like there's not a quarterback I'm taking in the first round after that. And this one doesn't really make sense. Tanner McKee's I think I see him as kind of more of like a career backup in the NFL. Like you like the size, he has a good arm, he's accurate. And I thought he was actually pretty good, but there's not much that are like that screams to me he's going to be like a difference maker as a starting quarterback in the league.
Give him DTR. Come on.
Yeah,
not fun with it.
DTR in the first?
I'd rather have him than Tanner McKee, tell you that much.
This Vikings team is good, and like we're about to name some guys who are very, very good football players, and you're trying to draft. Like it's like what the Packers did years ago with Jordan Love. It just doesn't make sense. Like you have a chance to win Super Bowls in the next couple of years, and you're going to go with your future quarterback potentially, and I like this pick. Let's get to a pick I actually like. Joey Porter Jr. going to the Denver Broncos on the other side of Patrick Surtain. Joey Porter Jr., one of my favorite cornerbacks. I'm not really sure where I'm going to kind of finish with him, but the length is disgusting. He's going to have like 34-inch arms. It's truly insane how long his arms are. When targeted, like people didn't target him. When targeted, very, very good. I love this pick.
Yeah, it's a makeup pick for losing that number 3 overall for Russell Wilson. So, I mean, it's a great pick for the value you're getting in Joey Porter.
He's a guy who's top 20 on my board comfortably. Yeah. So I like this pick. Trent Simpson to the Bills. Trent Simpson did not have a good year. And the reason you'll see him in the first round, if he goes in the first round, is because of what teams think he can be. Like he can be a difference maker at that linebacker position, whether he's blitzing, whether he's dropping back and carrying tight ends over the middle. Very good in the run game. I think he sees the game a little slower. Like we loved Nakobe Dean last year because I thought just he recognizes and sees the game so well from that linebacker spot. Trenton Simpson, not so much. But when you talk about physical traits and the ability to be one of the best linebackers in the league, physically, he's got that.
Is the Von Miller contract going to kind of tighten their budget so much they can't re-sign Edmonds?
I think that's the point of this pick, I think, is that Edmonds isn't coming back. And I wouldn't, as much as I love Edmonds, like Milano's been very, very good. And I think there's some linebackers you could get. I don't know if I go linebacker day one, but there are some linebackers that I think you feel comfortable with. We obviously took Terrell Bernard last year. I like this pick.
With that, I think what you're saying, like with the linebackers, again, I don't think they've separated themselves a whole lot. So it is hard to justify them in the first round. But again, he's in there with that top 4 for me, where if you like him, it's not a crazy spot to take him. Just like I don't think it's crazy for Drew Sanders.
To me, Milano's more of kind of a cover guy and sideline to sideline speed. With Tremaine Edmonds, I think you're getting more of a thumper in the inside, but he can also kind of run with tight ends. With Simpson, I don't think he's necessarily kind of a run filler or a hole filler. So I don't really love the fit. I'd rather just get someone in the later rounds that can just hit. So I don't know.
That's Jack Campbell.
I was gonna say Jack Campbell would be that guy. I'm with you on that. Oregon State going or Kansas City going Luke Musgrave. This, I mean, if you think Travis Kelce's out the door, sure, but he's not a first round guy. Didn't really play much for Oregon State. I like Luke Musgrave's game. I like him much more like late day too. There's outside of Washington and Michael Mayer, there's not a tight end you really should be touching in the top 32.
Did Musgrave get hurt this year?
Yes.
Was that him?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, there's just not much to him. I don't really like that pick. And then the Eagles get Jackson Smith-Njigba. You put him on the inside. Yeah, I could get with this pick again. We'll talk about this more with our wide receiver rankings, but I don't think there's a wide receiver in this class that gets the position more than Jackson Smith-Njigba than like sitting down in zone coverage, creating separation in man coverage. Like, just really, really good at the position. I get the physical limitations, but he's going to be.
He's going to run way faster than you guys think, just like Olave did. You guys were all saying Olave is.
No, don't put words in my mouth. I didn't think that.
Yo, let's put a public sub on Jackson Smith-Njigba 4.45 sub 4.45.
Oh, easy. I would put it on 4.4 flat.
Okay, I'll take the. So you're taking the under 4.4.
Yeah.
Deal. All right, sweet. Can we double that? Can we make that like a $50,000 bet? Because that's a lot. That's more of a lock than Georgia.
The problem is he doesn't look like he's running fast because it's not hard for him to run because he's a smooth athlete, but like he can come.
He's a smooth athlete. He's a smooth athlete. He's not an explosive athlete. That's my problem. That'll do it for the boys on a first round NFL mock. Again, just kind of talking some players, talking some position fits. We'll come back with some of our own mock drafts kind of in the next week or so. But again, we appreciate you guys checking us out. If you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We appreciate you guys. We'll talk to y'all later. Peace.